Greetings to all my dear friends. In this video, we'll be learning about the basic concepts of probability distribution. So for that, we must have an idea about the probability and its types. So what is this probability? I would like to start with an example. Suppose if we are tossing a coin, we can get either head or tail. There are two possibilities. And if I am asking what is the chance of getting head, it is actually 1 by 2 or 50-50 chance. While we are tossing a coin, the number of ways in which you can get a head is only 1 and the total number of possibilities is 2, that is head and tail. So the chance of getting head is 1 by 2. That is actually we call it as probability. And this probability concept, we are using it in our daily life, day-to-day life. When we take a newspaper, we can say that it may rain today. What is that? It may rain today. We are actually predicting the chance of getting rain, isn't it? So that is actually a probability. And then in genetics, we are using probability. We are drawing a checkerboard and predicting this and such allele is propagating to the next generation. What is that? It is probability. So everywhere, a day-to-day life, we are using probability. And here the value of probability may range between 0 to 1. And if the value of probability is 1, that means that event will surely take place. And if the value is 0, what we can say that the chance of occurrence of that event is 0%. It may not take place. And this concept is not only it is not foreign to the health workers. Everyday communication, we are using the concept of probability. Suppose if we go to a doctor and we are talking about a patient who has to undergo operation, and if the doctor is saying that the patient has only 50-50 chance of surviving, what is that? It is actually the probability. That means that patient can either die or he can survive, and the chance of survival is only 1 by 2. What it is? Probability. So in every day we are using this probability. Next, we are going to discuss about the types of probability. There are mainly four types or four approaches of probability: classical or a priori probability, relative frequency theory of probability, subjective approach to probability, and the last one, axiomatic approach to probability. So first one, so what is classical theory of probability? It is the theory proposed by Pascal and Fermat. They are two mathematicians, and actually this theory was developed for solving certain problems related to games of chance like rolling of dice and all. And we can explain this using an example. Suppose if a fair six-sided die is rolled, the probability that a 1 will be observed is equal to 1 by 6. If we are rolling a die, and what is the chance of getting 1? Actually, there are 6 possibilities. Either you can get 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 or 6, isn't it? And the chance of getting 1 is only 1 by total number of possibilities, that is 6. Okay, so even before the event takes place, we can predict the chance of occurrence of a certain event using a pure logic. That is known as classical theory of probability. Here there is a formula for probability calculation. The probability of occurrence of an event A is equal to the number of favorable cases divided by total number of equally likely cases. That is total number of possible outcomes. So that is the equation for calculating probability. So next one is relative frequency theory of probability. It is actually, we call it as the experimental theory. Here we are carrying out so many number of times an experiment. That is, it is calculated from number of times an event would happen divided by the total number of trials in an actual experiment. When will we use this type of probability? If we cannot use the theoretical probability, we will be depending upon the relative frequency theory of probability. Suppose if we are using a biased dice. The probability of getting a specific number, we cannot say that it is 1 by 6. It is a biased die, isn't it? So, in order to confirm the result, what we will do, we will repeat that experiment a number of times. This is relative frequency theory of probability. And from the experimental results, we will calculate the relative frequency. The same thing we can explain it to using a coin. If a coin is tossed 10 times, okay, the amount of times a head actually occur or appear is the relative frequency. In this case, the probability of head to happen is 6 by total number of possibilities, that is 10. That is 0.6 we will be getting. And in the case of tail, the probability or chance of getting tail is 0.4. So the experiment we are carrying out a large number of times. We should expect the number of times we increase the repetitions, it will approach a value which is near to 0.5. Okay, this is about relative frequency theory of probability. And third one is subjective approach to probability. It is proposed by Savage, and it is a type of probability which is actually derived from an individual's personal judgment or opinion, or by his own experience he will predict whether he or she will predict whether a specific outcome is likely to occur. And it does not contain any formal calculations and all, it is just based on a person's judgment or opinion. And so because of that, it can vary or differ from person to person, and there is high degree of chances of bias also. Okay, and while probability is based on classical or relative frequency concepts, they are designed to allow for decisions to be made solely, that is based on the data collected. But here it is not based on the data collected, it is actually based on a person's opinion or judgment. For example, the probability that a cure for cancer will be discovered within the next years. It is actually based on a particular person who is talking about their chances. Okay, so that is subjective approach to probability. Axiomatic approach to probability is the last type of probability which we'll be dealing in this session. That is, here we are proposing certain postulates, like in mathematics we are proposing certain postulates, and based on that we are calculating probability. And actually it is an extension of classical theory, and there I have told that the probability of an event, its value ranges between 0 to 1. The same thing here it is said, and the probability of entire sample will be 1. And if suppose if E1 and E2 are mutually exclusive events. What is this mutually exclusive event? Event which do not take place at the same time, that is mutually exclusive event. And then the how would you calculate the probability of either E1 or E2? Here there is a formula, that is probability of E1 or E2 is equal to the probability of E1 multiplied with the probability of E2. This is the equation. So based on certain equations and all, we are calculating probability. That is axiomatic approach to probability. Here are some important terms related to probability. First one is experiment. Suppose if we toss a coin, that tossing of coin is called the experiment. That is the operation that we do for getting a particular outcome. That is called experiment. Outcome means they are the possible results of an experiment. Okay, getting heads when a coin is tossed. That getting of heads is the outcome. And trial means it is an action that results in one or several outcomes. If we are tossing a coin 30 times, then each toss of the coin is called as trial. An event means it is a collection of some outcomes of the experiment. We are collecting the outcomes of experiment, and those outcomes are known as event. Elementary event means if the experiment has only one outcome. An event having only one outcome of the experiment is called elementary event. Getting heads or tails on while tossing a coin, either we will get head or tail. That is the elementary event. Compound event means by combining two or more elementary events, in connection with an experiment, that is called compound event. And equally likely outcomes means when each outcome of an experiment is as likely to occur as the other, then the outcomes of the experiment are said to be equally likely. Suppose if you are throwing a die, 6 outcomes are possible, equally likely outcomes. That is, either you can get a natural number 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 or 6. Isn't it? Either one of them you are getting. That is called equally likely outcomes. So next one is probability distribution. What is this probability distribution? It is a table. It can be a table, graph or formula which shows the relationship between a value of a randomly selected variable and its chances of occurrence. This we will depict in a table, graph or formula. That is known as probability distribution. It is very useful for the researchers and clinicians because they are collecting a lot of data, and if they have to summarize their data, they can use this probability distribution. And there are mainly three types of probability distribution: normal probability distribution, binomial and Poisson's, which we'll learn in later in detail. And here I am going to conclude this video. What we have studied in this session is about probability and its basic concepts and the different types of probability. Okay, thank you all.